All right, Big Waz is here. I was going to do like a little solo NBA thing tonight, and then I looked at the schedule, and it was a disaster. And I called Waz, and it was a little after 4 o'clock Pacific time. I'm like, let's just shoot the shit about NBA for a half hour because the games suck, and there's good storylines that I care about. Let's
Yeah.
talk. Let's talk East first.
Mhm.
The East. We're 2 weeks in.
Yep.
I'm not ready to say the East is wide open, and we
Mhm.
know this is a marathon, not a sprint. But we know a couple things. We know James Harden is not in shape. We know
Mhm.
Kyrie Irving isn't playing. We know Milwaukee is already like guys are missing games, stuff like that. We know your Hawks
Mhm.
offensively do not look the same. But the biggest thing from the first 2 weeks is that Miami has the look. And I didn't
Mhm.
know they were going to do this. I thought this was going to be a cruise through the regular season, turn it on in the playoffs team. They kind of have the look. Do you see it?
Yeah, I do see it, and obviously we came into the season understanding that they would be one of the best, if not the best defensive team in the NBA. But I think on offense, what we're seeing with Kyle Lowry, what he's doing for their pace, we don't think of Kyle Lowry as a pace guy anymore, but even at age 34, 35, whatever he is, he's still a pace dude. And I think a lot of people had Tyler Hero having a comeback season, but he's doing it. My man Cooper Moorhead tweeted out a stat today where he's under 30 minutes a game, or he's at like 30 minutes a game, but he's at a 30% usage. And a lot of that is playmaking. And so he's taken a step offensively for them in a way where it's like, all right, we knew when you have PJ Tucker, Kyle Lowry, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, you're going to defend the hell out of people. But offensively, they look better than we thought they would.
I like how you called it a comeback season. It's his third year in the league, but it really was. He sucked last year. His rookie cards
Exactly.
went in the tank. Everybody got
Yep.
upset, and it seemed a little fluky. But there were signs in the preseason because he was kicking
Mhm.
ass, and they figured out how to use him. He comes off the bench as this like the old school Jamal Crawford kind of. He comes in, he takes over your offense, he does stuff. I'm with you on the pace. I didn't expect that from Lowry. I I guess I didn't read enough about the Heat. I took them seriously as a possible, fringe contender when we got into the spring and maybe even a real contender if some things gelled. But I didn't realize they were going to be as kind of dynamic. I didn't realize they were going to be a good league pass team.
Yeah, and the problem too, Bill, when you have a team that's veteran laden as them, we think of veteran teams as switch teams.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the Hawks later on, but like veteran teams are generally switch teams. Like I think the Lakers are a switch team, in the sense that it's just like, look, 82 games, my bones are old. Like
Yeah.
I've been through the playoff crucible. I like I'm not one of these teams that thinks I know what it takes. Like I actually have the knowledge of what it takes to get through the grind of a postseason. I'm not doing this regular season stuff, but these guys have come out on a mission and they play with vigor every single night. And it's been really cool to watch.
I was thinking about the 6 degrees of Ben Simmons, how if Jimmy Butler liked playing with Ben Simmons,
Wow.
I think he stays in Philly, right?
Yeah.
Because they had something. They were pretty close that year, and that was the best we've seen of Simmons in the playoffs, even though he had all the limitations he had the other years. But at least, that team was the closest, I think, out of all those Philly teams to actually looking like something. And then Butler, I don't know whether Philly was afraid because the more he had the ball, maybe that took some stuff away from Simmons and Embiid. Maybe he sniffed something out with Simmons that he didn't like. If you read the tea leaves, it does seem like he didn't feel like those guys took it seriously enough, but he was way more team Embiid than team Simmons. And he goes to Miami, and that opens the door. The Miami being a good team comes down to the Bam pick, which was a great pick,
Yep.
the coin flip with the Celtics to land in the spot that gets the Tyler pick.
Mm.
Butler deciding he doesn't like Philly the same year they have the cap space. And then them pulling off this Lowry thing because the Heat culture and Jimmy and all that. And then you look at it, it's like, this is a pretty unusual way to build a contender. They didn't
Yeah.
have the lottery pick in place. They didn't really completely tank. Pretty shrewd. I'm impressed.
It's interesting because I think a lot of us, you included, Bill, have been pretty like eye rolly about this concept of heat culture. But at the same time, I think what it really means is about setting a pecking order. And in Jimmy's previous two stops, when it came to like the Sixers, and it's like, there's no established pecking order. You guys are kissing Ben Simmons' ass. This guy's not that good.
Yeah, you're
Doesn't
enabling him.
Yeah, doesn't want it that bad. I'm out of here. This is ridiculous culturally. And the same could be said about Wiggins and Carl Towns, where Jimmy's like, why are we kowtowing to these kids? They're not that good. They don't take it seriously enough. This culture is ridiculous. Because again, he started out with Tibbs. So then he goes to Miami and it's like, all right, see, this all makes sense. Like, we understand that everything flows from the top with Riley and Spoelstra and all of them. And then, like, we establish a culture where everybody's held accountable, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, like you said, they land on Bam. They have the type of place where the minute PJ Tucker lands in their building, like, it's making sense, right? Like, he's the type of player that fits perfectly into what they're doing. And, to get Tyler Hero to sort of define a role for him, that takes a certain level of thinking and emotional intelligence on the part of the organization to be like, all right, here's where this piece perfectly fits. And then, their player development stuff with people like Duncan Robinson is legendary.
Good shooters. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because not everyone fits in with that team, right? Iguodala never seemed like he totally fit in. Bielitsa,
Sure.
he finally finds a home in Golden State.
Right.
I'll never be able to say his name correctly. But it seems like it's certain type of guys, but the Butler Lowry thing's been great so far. It's really alpha doggy. There's they seem like they should be hanging out on a porch with their shirts off. just being alphas.
But the thing about it is that they're both so psychotic about their profession that they feel like kindred spirits. Is like, we are so in tune, it's almost telepathic about what we think basketball is and how people should go about the business of basketball. That again, this is no-brainers. Like, these kinds of, like, Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, these guys are so obviously Heat people. And so that it's working doesn't seem that, crazy to me. However,
well, Lowry's old. It's early, and Lowry's old. We got to go 34 weeks here.
Right. Jimmy's had the injury stuff. Lowry is getting way older. Like, hopefully these guys hold up. But I'm not surprised that it's working. It makes sense.
So I'm not ready to say I was wrong about the Heat as a regular season team, but it looks like I'm heading that way. I wonder about the older guys, and especially if they're going to play at this pace. But I really like what I see from them, and they're really fun to watch. The Bulls, who I've seen a lot of, I still don't love them defensively. Now, of course, the Celtics couldn't exploit it last night because of myriad strategy problems that team has. Oh my God, I don't even want to talk about them. I know we're going to. Defensively, a little better than I thought. I thought they were going to be like a turnstile. Vucevic, though, of course, the Celtics only attacked him twice in the last 8 minutes of the game when we needed baskets. I was going nuts. But the Caruso piece where they lose Patrick Williams, and you think like, oh my God, they lost their best perimeter defender. Caruso came in. They can go a little small ballish with Caruso. DeRozan, he's not awful defensively.
He's a smart enough player that he's not going to be horribly out of position. But you run him through enough screens and stuff like that, it's over. But
it's like how Jokic knows where to go and what to do, right? He's not like a complete catastrophe. So anyway, they're a little better defensive than I thought, but man, that team gets good shots. It was really frustrating last night. I liked all the shots they got when they were coming back. It wasn't just that Boston kind of fell apart a little bit and missed some wide open shots, things like that. But then you go on the other end, and every time, ball's moving around, ball's finding the right people. They have two guys they know they can go to. Vucevic didn't even play well last night. So I'm a little higher on them than I think I was 2 weeks ago. Where do you stand?
I was never low on the Bulls, although, I was talking to Goff earlier today on his show about the Bulls, and I think a couple of Bulls fans hit me, was like, oh, you hated on the move. I was like, I thought it made sense as far as DeRozan being over the years, he's cultivated his game to become more of a playmaker. Like in San Antonio, he was their de facto point
Yep.
guard. So he has that in him as far as elite playmaking on the ball type of stuff. And Levine was going to be Levine. He didn't have to shoulder the burden. And he could, when you got somebody who can shoot like that, it opens everything else up, right? Like he can be dangerous off the ball with his movement, not just cutting. Him as a screen setter, like that sends a defense into a tizzy, right? Like when a guy who's that good at shooting is himself setting amazing screens. We've seen that in Golden State over the years with both Steph and Klay Thompson, where what they're doing off the ball sends defenses into a tailspin. And then, of course, the Lonzo Ball of it all, where there's just something about his smarts on the court, his understanding of what defenses are trying to do, and his willingness to get it out quick in transition and just in the half court, where it's like he's not taking 20,000 dribbles and then giving it up. He's getting it, making a read, quick pass. It just all makes sense. And, we're here in LA, Bill, so we understand the Caruso sanity stuff in a different way. But I think people around the country was like, all right, this is just a Laker guy getting way more attention than he deserves. But no, Caruso comes on the court, he changed the complexion of the game. His physicality on defense, his instincts, his athleticism, where he's disrupting all kinds of things, and he's a menace in transition. I just think once they brought Ball and Caruso in, I loved their offseason. Obviously, some people were whatever they were about DeMar DeRozan and the price tag, et cetera, et cetera. But Ball and Caruso, that it's just been incredible to watch them.
I did not like the DeRozan trade, and I think I might have been wrong. Because it's not like they gave up anything. They basically, Thad Young's not even playing for the Spurs. Two thoughts. One, the Lonzo thing kills me because that's how I wanted the Celtics summer to go. I wanted them to trade Smart for Lonzo. I was hoping it was headed that way, that New Orleans was like, oh, Smart, veteran presence for our guys, and that would be the move. But it seems like that Bulls thing was done with Lonzo for long enough that they might get a tampering sort of something. But it's a bummer because I just think Lonzo, fun to play with, doesn't need the ball, is the type of guy that would be perfect for the Celtics. The Caruso thing, I was thinking about the bubble where you think like there's a lot of reasons they won. And I think Adonde on my pod a couple weeks ago made the key point about where they had this rest time where they were able to recharge their batteries, which was great for LeBron, right? He had to go 10 weeks. He was in awesome shape
in the bubble.
Yeah. And that was physically about as good as he's ever going to look in a playoffs at the age he's at. But they had three wings that were pretty high-level defenders. KCP, Danny Green, Caruso. And all those guys are now not on the Lakers. I don't want to do a Lakers tangent, but they have no wings now. They have nobody to defend really anybody. And they just threw that away. And it's weird to me that they didn't understand. Like, I think a pretty big piece of why they won, other than having Davis and LeBron, was the flexibility they had defensively with those perimeter guys.
I mean, the only thing I've heard trotted out with Caruso, because Caruso just felt like a money dump at the time that was just completely unnecessary. But they said in order to get guys like Monk and other people to come in on really cheap deals was they had to promise them playing time. And so in order to get a few guys for the one, they had to let Caruso go. I just thought it was insane.
They picked Horton Tucker over him, though.
Which, again,
that's where I have a problem.
I don't know. If you just look at the lineup data of LeBron and Caruso on the court together over the last few years, they are just smoking people. He became like one of the best teammates to put on the floor next to LeBron. Like what they were with him, LeBron and AD would accomplish in transition was just amazing. And it was another way for the Lakers to generate buckets while not having to be in the half court all the time. And we know over the years, people did the concern trolling about their shooting, which some of it was warranted. But for me, it was just like this unit is so elite on defense. They're constantly getting runouts, constantly getting transition buckets. They make up for it in efficiency because they're so good on a transition end and getting easy baskets, etc. But yeah, the Caruso thing, I still continue to think that's a crime. Like that guy should have never left the Lakers building.
Well, and it's one of those where you see this happen in the NBA. You see the NFL too. The guy who was on a championship team, the role player, who ends up getting overpaid in free agency by the team who's trying to
Right.
oh, we're going to bring this guy in. He knows how to
Right.
win. It's usually a disaster. It doesn't feel like a disaster in this case. The Patrick Williams thing
That
really sucks for them though,
That
because
sucks.
but then they had guys yesterday I've never heard of who were making big shots. I had Chicago. I think the over-under was 42.5. I think I went under. The big mistake I made was the Celts. The Celts are a lottery team. They're a lottery team. This is a roster that doesn't make sense, that doesn't like playing basketball with each other. And they threw this new coach in who I have no idea if Udoka is going to be good at some point in his life, but he's learning how to be a head coach in real time as this season is starting to slip away a couple weeks in. And we have Jason Tatum here, still recruiting Bradley Beal. It's like, worry about your own fucking team, dude. You're 23. You've never made a finals. You're not like LeBron in 2013 recruiting people for the three-peat.
Right.
You've barely done anything yet.
Right.
Like, worry about the guys you have. You have a good team. Stop flirting with Bradley Beal. My dad was so upset Saturday night. They lose double OT, and it's like, cut it right after. Tatum and Beal have to have their whole hug fest. It's like, get fucking over it. Go to the locker room. Deal with the loss. This has been, I hate this season, Wes.
Yeah.
Kyle, don't send this to the social team. I don't want this social clip. I'm angry. I'm hurt. Don't exploit me for social media views. I'm upset.
Look, there's so much going on, and I think the Jimmy Butler stuff is instructive, right? In the sense that the hierarchy on that team is a weird one because Marcus Smart was always the teacher's pet with Brad Stevens, and the other two guys were the best players, but Marcus Smart was also like I hate using this term, but he was the alpha in the locker room where he was like the soul of the team. He was like the spiritual leader of the team, but he's by far not the best player. And your two best guys kind of seem like they don't really care to be those kinds of dudes. They don't really care to be getting in nobody's face or yelling in the locker room or throwing something down. They want to come in, do their job, and leave. And so because that leadership vacuum was filled by a guy who ideally is the fourth or fifth best player on a really good team, I think you see the difficulties.
That's pushing it.
And right. Bill, stop.
He's got his PR is like 8 right now. He's really like an offensive liability. And he's like, I need more shots.
Right. And so you have a situation in a game where, sure, they scored 11 points in the fourth quarter, but they gave up 40. In a game, like, I just feel like as somebody with any level of self-awareness to come out after a game where you give up 130 in regulation to say the problem is the shot distribution of your team.
Also, I went and watched the second half again. They got mostly good shots and good drives. They just missed the shots. They didn't hustle back on D a couple times, and they don't play well together. And then as things break down, they walk the ball up the court. They dump it to Tatum, 25 feet from the basket. Everybody kind of stands around, and then he tries to decide what to do. The smart thing, though, I always watch the visiting announcers when I watch the Celts. If I'm catching up,
sure,
and they're always like, Marcus Smart, it's the heart and soul of the Celtics team. It's like, we haven't had a heart and a soul in 18 months, so maybe that's part of the problem. We have no heart and no soul. We roll over and over again.
Since that loss to the Heat in the bubble, it's been a disaster for these guys. And, again, and I mentioned this with Jason as well, it's like all of the hand-wringing and ass-kissing and the untouchability of Brown and Tatum, which I'm not saying you trade these guys tomorrow, but that's why I was always like, kind of like, just like, I mean, really? These guys are untouchable. I think when you become a superstar, right, like you are, when you become the Hardens, the LeBrons, the best players in the league, these ball-dominant guys. The only thing that Marcus Smart does have a point about, you are elite at playmaking. You are elite
Make other people better.
Make other people better. It's not just that you hit the guy on the short roll. It's that you hit the guy on the weak side corner with that one bullet pass, one pass as the defense is shaded towards you, open corner three, right? Like when you're making those level of plays and those level of reads, that's what makes you a superstar. And God bless Brown. I love Brown. I've actually been hashtag, Brown over Tatum trolley on the internet for years now. I love his game, but neither him nor Tatum have elevated their playmaking on the ball to the level that would, demand that these guys get treated like these upper echelon superstar type of guys in the league. And the honest truth is like Marcus Smart is saying the right thing, but it can't be you that's saying it. Cause like, bro, you're like the sixth best player on the team. You're taking 30 footers, 7 of them each game. Like, you gotta miss me, Marcus Smart.